you think she was in the jungle for 5 or 10 years, basically alone except for some monkeys?
My mama, she was born in 1950s Colombia, and she was one of the many kids in that era that got kidnapped. Mum's story went a bit different to what I think most of the others did.
What happened?
Well, her kidnapping ended in her being abandoned into a jungle.
So how on earth did she survive?
With the company of monkeys and her following how they survive in the jungle. Not survive, live. Yeah. She survived learning off them how to eat, how to crack a nut open, where water is. Based on her bones, we checked her age. Based on her memory of her hair length, we've identified she was in the jungle maybe between 5 and 10 years.
Can I just close my jaw? I mean, that is the most unbelievable thing.
I know it sounds crazy, and it's like if I was to hear a story of someone saying my mum got raised by kangaroos, I'd be like, whatever. I'm a skeptical as well, but in her blood, there's so many jungle diseases that they've found that are dormant, and they're like, that doesn't exist anywhere other than the jungles of North Colombia.
How did she eventually make her way out of the jungle?
After so many years where she totally thought she was a monkey, she forgot she was human. Some hunters came. Well, they eventually then took her and put her in a truck full of other captured animals, like other monkeys and parrots and butterflies. They eventually sold her. She was sold to what we now know is a brothel house.
Oh my gosh.
But luckily, she was so feral that they couldn't use her because she was so wild, so they used her as a slave. And I wanted to collect the information because it was my family story. And then eventually, I was like, Mum, this is a book, you know? It became a little bigger than we expected for a little Bradford household, you know. We suddenly got the Sunday Times taking pictures of my dad with his carton of milk in his barber jacket. It was a bit of a whirlwind. National Geographic made a documentary on it and did a lot of tests on her. And they all came out to help prove who she was.
So the gap in the story is, how did she end up coming from Colombia to Britain?
Eventually she got adopted off the streets, and that family were in the textile business and had a contact in Bradford, which was the capital of the wool industry in the 70s. And so they went over there. They were meant to all go back, but Mum fell in love with my dad across a church hall, and then I'm here.
I mean, everything about it is just mind-blowing. I think what's so weird is that this very exotic story happened in the jungles of Colombia, but she ended up in Bradford. And I wonder what her mother now makes of Vanessa living out here, single woman, living alone, in a country that some people still feel has a dangerous side to it. I'm back in Sri Lanka with vet Janie. So much has happened in the world in the last 5 years, and here in Sri Lanka in particular. What's it been like?
It was, I guess, particularly tough for us because the airport closed for a year. So we couldn't get in or out. If there was an emergency at home with parents or whatever, we knew we couldn't go. And so what happened is that actually at the start of COVID, everyone kind of panicked and went home. So we went from having 30 staff to having 14 overnight. All of the nurses left, all of the vets left, so I was kind of on my own. Yeah, it was really, really hard. We didn't have nurses to do anaesthesia, so I'm operating at the same time instructing someone of how to turn the gas up and down and trying to, it was really, really hard, really hard.
I mean, that must have really pushed you to the edge.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to accept it happened. Because, yeah, sorry, we just, you know, the whole point is that we try and come at everything with positivity. And that's what I want to do always. But the last 3 or 4 years have really challenged my resolve on that. Like, it's been really hard to stay bubbly and stay positive when it's just been very hard personally. And for the team have just, you know, dug deep and done double, triple the amount of work than they were ever expected to do, and stepped into roles that were just, you know, they should never have been monitoring anaesthetics. And then we lose a patient and that stays with you for life. I'm trained to deal with that, but they're not, and I was putting them in that position. So it's a lot to kind of, yeah. It is really hard, but everyone had it hard, so it's, yeah, it's all good. But then what happened after that is we thought we were home and dry, and then obviously the economic crisis happened in Sri Lanka and political instability, and things went from what I thought was the worst to kind of even worse.
Just, some people might not be aware of what happened here last year.
Yeah, no, it was hard to keep up to speed with it. The country basically ran out of foreign currency, so ran out of dollars, which meant we couldn't purchase basic items like food items, fuel. Down here, we were having 16 hours of power cuts every day.
Could you use generators?
So, yeah, we could use generators, however, we couldn't get fuel for the generators.
So without fuel, the knock-on effect must have been tremendous.
We were struggling to get dog food, we were struggling to get medicines, you know, human medicines were running short. We couldn't get rabies vaccines, so if you were bitten by a dog with rabies, there was no treatment on the whole island. We couldn't get off the island because flights weren't coming in because they couldn't refuel. There was just so many implications. People were waiting in fuel queues for 5 days. People were dying in fuel queues. And I've definitely been challenged on every single level that I could possibly imagine. But the overriding purpose for me remains the same now as it did 8 years ago. Like, these dogs need veterinary help, and that's what I'm here for.
And at the heart of all of this are the dogs. It's all about the dogs. For Janie, this is everything. When I first arrived, Rona hid her troubles incredibly well. But I'm learning that underneath the surface, she's always struggled with her identity. Not just when confronting Uruguayan culture, but even back to her days in Hollywood and her own childhood. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.
Salud.
This is kombucha.
It is kombucha.
Is this your drink of choice?
It's my tipple.
Do you drink alcohol?
I don't. No, I don't. For me, the representation of alcohol in my family wasn't a positive one. Mm-hmm. And my mother, she was an alcoholic. It meant that she was either in hospitals or in bed for most of my life. All I was trying to do was wait for my mum to get better. She actually didn't, and unfortunately, it was 30 years, and she went to the grave, unfortunately, without ever really living the life that I think she deserved. My dad was a very busy surgeon, and he was off, being a surgeon. So we didn't have a nucleus. There was no foundation. There was no North Pole. And so, yes, you do things like run away with the circus. You run away to LA. And really, when I think about it, it was like it felt like Fagin in Oliver Twist, a manager who met me in London and took me to Hollywood and put me in with the sharks. And I could write a book on those first 10 years that would horrify people. And it was awful. I really wasn't happy. But I went along with it because it was intoxicating. I actually love a huge part of it, but I did feel like a bit of a stowaway on this Titanic.
When you say stowaway, did you almost feel like a fraud?
I felt like a fraud towards me. I felt like actually I was abandoning me. And actually that's what the most painful thing is what was really hurting was my inner deep self saying, how much longer are you going to do this?
So Rona, if we're talking about that authenticity, I'm wondering now, sitting on this rock, the sun has just set, we've got this extraordinary view. How does it feel now in terms of authenticity?
We're on the other side where I can actually breathe and look at you with a smile on my face. But it's been pretty tough.
For me, what I've seen so far is someone who actually looks very suited and like they belong to this environment.
Thank you for saying kind things, because I don't have anybody else's perspective, so it's just nice to be here now.
Has it been frustrating, things like not being able to kayak? How do you cope with that?
Well, I just accept it. I don't like to spend time on being frustrated. Mm.
And what's the sort of prognosis? Are you able to kind of work your way back to full health?
The pelvis thing is getting much better, so I sit now.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what caused it?
Yes, I had cancer some years ago, 2007, and I had my uterus taken out, and it's a huge organ of the body, and they found out recently that it actually affects your core muscles also. So that's probably the reason. It's not for sure, but probably. So it's improved a lot. But the good thing is that I have so many helpers now. When you were here last, I was more or less alone, or mostly alone. But now I have this whole family of people coming here to help. So it's not so dependent on me anymore, which is good.
Did you ever feel sorry for yourself?
No. Is there someone who doesn't need sorry? That's me. I'm so lucky.
8 years on, I can't help but notice there are far fewer animals running around, and I wonder where they've all gone. This looks like one of the places where you rehabilitate animals. Do you still do that?
No, I don't rehabilitate anymore, only care for them. In 2019, the whole Kimberley was burned terribly. It has killed a lot of animals. I do more land care because you cannot release wildlife if the biodiversity of the land is gone. So to do wildlife caring again or rehabilitation, I work on the land and bring it back what it should be.
Australia's 2019 wildfire season was one of the worst ever recorded. The blazing infernos burned 12.4 million acres of land and killed an estimated 1 billion animals, many species of which now face total extinction due to so many of them not existing anywhere else on the planet. Tragically, the Kimberley region and Barbara's home were also devastated by the event.
The fire came from 5 sides. It came over the hill, it just burned the whole lot. All the fences were destroyed, the gates, everything was destroyed. And the smoke, I almost died. I couldn't breathe anymore. It was just surrounded by smoke everywhere, and I couldn't do anything. I was just lying on the ground and gasping for air. I had my lungs full with smoke, and I couldn't do anything anymore, and my heart was beating like hell, boom, boom, boom. And this is how you can die. Firefighters from Perth, they had to come up because everything was burned there. And then next day, dead kangaroos, dead snakes, it's just all this dead stuff lying around.
That sounds terrifying. Were you not tempted to leave after that?
You cannot walk away. That's impossible because I'm here to care for a piece of land and for the animals.
Are you scared of another fire on that scale coming through here?
Yeah, this is Australia. You have floods, you have fire, you have storms, you have just everything. That's the cane grass, that high one. When a hot fire goes through, it destroys the perennial grass. It's classified as a weed, you know. It's fuel for the next fire. And you can't control the fire anymore. It burns like hell.
Just trying to imagine all of this up in flames. Imagine the noise, the smell, the smoke. Would have been utterly terrifying. Fires coming from all sides over the mountain. She was on the floor gasping for air, for goodness sake, you know, in fear of her life, and she had firefighters here. And this is, I suppose, the reality of living in a place like this. If it's not the fires, it's the floods you're worrying about. The world is changing. What are we going to use these nettles for?
We're gonna make nettle soup.
Nice. Are you still foraging a lot?
Yeah, quite much, even more, I guess, than what I did before. I read more about which plants one can eat and which mushrooms, and maybe are not so well known, are still like edible.
And you've got help now with Nico.
Yeah, he's actually a very good mushroom hunter. I mean, he's so down to the ground, so he sees them all, and he loves to learn all of this, this living in the nature thing, sort of.
Since my last visit, Annalise has been working hard to make their life more comfortable, and she's keen to show me the fruits of her labour.
Look at that.
No way. Yes. You've got running water. How on earth, how have you got that?
I've put a pump at the well and I dug in the ground, so there is like a pipe going through the earth. There is a button there, can you?
This one?
Yes. Ta-da!
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I have more.
So you've got electricity and running water now?
Yes.
3 years on, and I wonder if Annalisa regrets some of the choices she made.
Do you think there's part of you that feels guilty at all about maybe what you put your parents through?
I don't know. I mean, I can't feel guilty for trying to get free, and my way of breaking loose, I see it as one of the only ways I had to break loose, because I wasn't able to communicate with anyone, not even just my parents. But it's like this, when things are hard, we tend not to talk about them. I probably should have been more communicative. I wasn't able to. I wish I was.
Why do you think you couldn't communicate?
It's hard to reach out to the ones you love if you are not used to do it in those situations.
Do you think you can do that now?
Yeah.
But why?
Just because I don't care anymore about having all the answers, you know? Like if I say I'm doing this and someone says like, but why are you doing that? Then I'm like, I don't know, it feels right. And I can stand for it, that I don't have a clue why I'm doing it, but it's good.
What do your parents make of all of this now?
I think they're really proud. I think they think it's very cool. So they really saw the purpose from quite early on, and that's why they were supportive, and that's why we still have a very beautiful relationship to one another. Like, there's a purpose and they see it.
She says that her parents have always been supportive of her lifestyle choices, that they're really proud of her and what she does now, but it can't have been easy for them. I think she probably has challenged them over the years by her own admission, but they should be proud of what she's got to now, because this is really impressive.